everybody, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Kyle, and this is my 3800 that I'm installing in the back of my Fiero. This is the second episode of my engine swap series. In the first one, we took this 3800 that looked rusty and dusty and tore it down and built it up to look like this. Now, we still have a ton more work to do to get this thing ready to go into the Fiero, and we're gonna get right to that and pick up where we left off. Now, moving on, we're gonna work on these coolant ports that are right here on the front of the engine. There's one here on the water pump and one on the lower intake manifold. These are for your heater core, but on a Fiero application, we're gonna be changing it up a little bit. So people end up blocking this port and they will use this one and then put a T-in down in the coolant system for the other heater core line. Now, people do mainly two different things on these ports. They will either use these pressure fit fittings that are like a factory style, or they will get a tap and a plug or fittings to use in these holes. So I might go and use this elbow for the lower intake manifold. Then I might go and cap off the water pump port with this block off right here. And it might be good to do one of each to show you guys the two different ways that people generally go about doing this, and so you can pick what you want to do for your engine swap. All right, here's my plan of attack here. I have my 3/4 inch tap, like I said, and my plug. I'm gonna go ahead and put some grease on here and some lubricant to try and catch the metal shavings and lubricate this so I don't get a bunch of metal shavings going into my water pump. And I found a 12.21 millimeter socket, which this fits in there. It's not the tightest thing in the world, but it's not gonna strip out on itself. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. And hopefully this goes smoothly. All right, this thing is covered in grease and WD-40. It fits pretty good in here, so I'm gonna try and make sure that I'm straight. And I'm even able to kind of start it by hand. So let's just go slow on here. Make sure that we're doing this evenly and straight on. And we should have no issues. I have the hole pretty much tapped. I got all the threads in there. I didn't go as deep as I probably could have just because I didn't want to hit the back of this and end up stripping it out or anything. So I was pretty reserved on that, but the plug itself is not that long, so I think I have more than enough threads for that. And the plug threads right in, which is perfect. So let's get some sealant on that and get it installed. Just like that, our plug is installed. It is nice and tight, has sealant. I don't think that is gonna leak. Okay everyone, I have my elbow here. I have motor oil on this side. I also have it in the hole. So I'm just gonna go ahead and try and pop this thing in, and we can make our support bracket after that. I don't really know how far these are supposed to go in, but, oh. It just went in and kind of hit a point where it won't go any farther. So I think that is fully seated. So the idea for the bracket is that you're gonna use one of these holes. I'm gonna use this one right here because there's already a bolt in it to just add some support so this elbow doesn't pop out. I found this random bracket. I do not know what it's to or what it does, but I think I'm gonna be able to utilize it to hold some support onto this elbow. I don't exactly know what I'm gonna do, so I'm gonna do some brainstorming and trial and error, and I will update you guys on what I come up with. All right, here is what I came up with. It's really simple. I basically just cut the top of that bracket off and bent it just a little bit. So now, if I bolt it on to this bolt hole right here, now I think since this is flat and I'll be able to bolt it on here, I think I'll have just enough tension on the bracket to hold this elbow in place so it won't pop out on me. Now, I'm using the low mount alternator from Fiero, and because of that, I'm gonna have an issue with my oil pressure sensor. And that's because it hits the bracket right here if it was to go in straight. I'm using an 88 Fiero oil pressure sensor. I'm just gonna take it out of my car since I already have that, so I don't have it as a reference right now, but I'll take my word for it. But what I got is this little 90-degree elbow, which is going to thread right into here. And I'm going to be able to flip it 90 degrees and have the oil pressure sensor come out this way. In reality, I can have it come out straight down if I want to, or however I want. I think I'm gonna do it 90 degrees just so it's out of the way, and it'll be really easy if I ever have to change it. All right, moving on to spark plugs. I am taking out the original crusty old spark plugs and replacing them with Autolite 103s. These spark plugs are recommended by ZZP and a lot of other 3800 forums for being great candidates for mild to wild builds. They reduce KR and they're just overall a nice, cheap plug. So I'm gonna be going with these, and I think they're gonna be great for my engine. So with our bracket on here, it holds in this elbow nice and tight so this thing cannot pop out. So with that complete, we're gonna move back onto the pulley assembly, specifically on this part right here. So this is the bracket that came on my engine. It came from a Buick Park Ave, like I said, and unfortunately this bracket right here we cannot use because I believe that this sticks out too far and interferes with the deck lid hinge or the firewall or something. Either way, we cannot use this bracket at all. So we need to swap that for this one right here. This one I pulled off of a Grand Prix GTP, and this is the one that we need to bolt onto our car. I don't know if you can see it down there, but there's the part number. And this is a modified bracket. This is actually the other half to it. This would have been attached like this, but you do have to cut that off for clearance. And this is the bracket that we need for our car. Now, the reason we need this bracket is that the pulleys are a lot closer to the engine, which allows for some clearance. I believe that these brackets mount the exact same way. So we'll be able to just zip these things off and they should just swap really easily. It's got some 15mm nuts, and then this bracket comes off as one piece. And now our modified Grand Prix bracket goes on just like this. And now with our bracket installed, we can go ahead and put our tensioner on. Goes on like this, and then use one of the nuts to hold it on. Now we can put our pulleys on. I'll put a little bit of Loctite on here. Put our tensioner pulley on. Then we have our idler over here. We have one more pulley that we need to install, and that is our dog bone tensioner right here. This bolts on right here. You can see on the back of our Ford Taurus 3.8 liter tensioner, there is a little dowel that lines up right here with this hole, just like that. But apparently this bolt is too long to just put in by itself. So this spacer is just gonna allow me to space out this bolt just enough so I can use it. So let's get this thing put on and hopefully it works. Perfect. Now we have our tensioner for our dog bone bracket installed, and that completes our belt assembly. So the last thing that I need to do before I can put the belt on is put the AC on. I have my compressor right here. I got this from the junkyard, and I am planning on running AC on this car, but right now I'm not because I don't have blinds or really anything else for that. So I just made this quick block off plate for the back of the AC compressor so nothing gets in. And let's get this thing installed. With our AC compressor installed, we can go ahead and install our belts. These are the belts that I'm going with. I found these on the Facebook page and they seem to be pretty well. here are the part numbers. This is for the supercharger, and this is the main belt. Now, the belt that I bought that was recommended by Fiero was actually too short, so I don't know if maybe I did something wrong or if I have a wrong pulley on here that I'll find out later, but it just did not work for me. But I found these. I'm hoping these are gonna work, so let's get them installed. And with our belts installed, the engine is just about complete and ready to go into the car. I might be missing some stuff, but I'm pretty sure I covered just about everything that I need to do to this engine before I can put it into the car. We have tackled a whole bunch of stuff and I've completely transformed this engine, and I am so excited to get this thing into the car. But that is going to complete the second episode of our engine swap series. Make sure to tune back next time when we start tearing apart the Fiero to get it ready for this 3800. So thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next episode. See you later.